culture of hip hop is really tied into the NBA. Actually, I just was reading the other day, Dame Lillard is about to release an album. He's working on his own album. So it's just kind of ingrained in the culture. And we, over the past few years, have embraced that. We started with the Jay-Z curated, we had Pharrell, but this year we decided to go with 3 different DJs. And the 3 different DJs span not only different eras of hip hop, but also different styles of hip hop. Yeah. Premier is classic. Think of all the hits he's produced for Eminem and Nas. And when he was with Gangstar, back when I was coming up. Yeah. He's that New York sound that everybody kind of craves, and has been around for a really long time. DJ Khaled in the South kind of movement, and then DJ Mustard, whose music right now is being played with Chris Brown and like Kid Ink. So we're really covering a big gamut, and it's not just their own music, but also the music that inspires them. So when they pick those soundtracks, it's the music that they want to hear, plus their own music and exclusive tracks only for 2K16. So it's a huge soundtrack, it's a varied soundtrack, and it really resonates, to me, this year resonates with that culture aspect that we want to kind of nail.
And I guess visually it's also important to nail the look of NBA. Yes. And each year, I don't know how you must do it, like you must strive every year to make it as authentic as possible, then you've got to do it again next year. How do you look at like the previous year's game and identify what needs to change and what needs to improve, and what have you improved for 2K16?
Well, we haven't shown a ton of visuals outside of a few screenshots, but every year we just kind of go back to the drawing board. I don't want to say to the drawing board, but we've been doing scans on the faces, but you've seen, if you follow us, you'll know that we did full body scans this year. So we're also trying to nail additional details for every particular player, from skin tone to hair to, what tattoos are they wearing. That attention to detail is what has made us special, not just from a visual standpoint, but from an animation standpoint, from a signature standpoint. We introduced signature at 2K in 2K7. This year we expand upon that more than we've ever done before. Just trying to really nail all the little idiosyncrasies that each particular individual has. From whether it's how I move on the court to how I celebrate. Every player has his own way of reacting to the game, and that's the things that we try to nail. So graphically, we're doing that. We're trying to, we're amping up what you see in terms of crowd, just pretty much any stone that we can turn and make better, we will.
And let's talk about career mode, because that's always been really special with 2K, NBA 2K. Like guys in my office who don't even follow basketball have their lives eaten by NBA 2K's career mode, and this year Spike Lee is directing it.
Yeah.
Like, tell us about that. That sounds amazing.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I remember at the end of last year, we were walking out and we're like, so we've done career as a story. We've done career in 14, and then we did career in 15. And, it's like, where are we going next year? And, my executive producer, vice president comes up. He's like, I got this crazy idea. I'm going to ask Spike. And I just looked at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, we're going to talk to Spike Lee. Okay. So we go talking to Spike Lee, and Spike is so into basketball. And, and even though video games hadn't necessarily been his thing, he is so attentive to everything that he took all the notes about what he knew that we had already done in 14 and 15, and kind of then sat down with the producers who were saying, hey, this year we're going to introduce these new mechanics into the game, and we want them to be rolled into that story. So he wrote and produced a story that could fit and hit all of the moments that we wanted while telling a story in only the way that Spike Lee could. So, the end result is a very engaging experience that, spans your gamut from the moment you create yourself all the way to the time you're an all-star and beyond. But it's being told in a way that we just not, we're good, but we're not Spielberg, we're not Spike Lee's, we're not, we're not movie directors. And so I think the end result is that people are going to be just really gripped by the overall experience and the immersiveness of being inside of this story.
And why do you think NBA lends itself to these stories, maybe more than any other sport? Because you get career modes in other sports games, and you make your player and you put them in a team, and you just play games. Like the sport is the thing.
Right.
The story in itself is so important here. Why do you think that is? And you can scan your own face, and it's like you are in the game meeting these NBA stars. Why is story so important, do you think?
We think that it's important because what you just said. I mean, all the other games, we've already done career as play, grow.
Yeah.
So there was a natural evolution into play and experience who you are as a professional who's, earning millions of dollars, but who's also being pulled by all the different influences, whether it be team, coach, agents, friends, you name it, it all comes in. That's not to say that it's not part of other sports, but it's really prevalent, and the stories about the NBA are way more prevalent in the news than pretty much any other sport.
Yeah.
You don't go out and read about, all that Cristiano Ronaldo is doing. You just don't hear it. But you sure enough know exactly what Dwayne Wade and LeBron James are doing on a day-to-day basis, or how, certain guys don't get along with other players, or certain players don't get along with other coaches. I mean, there's storyline on top of storyline on top of storyline, and for us to be able to tap into it and kind of create an experience out of that, it's a big thing.
And also, the amount of customization options I saw in the presentation was incredible, like taking photos and putting them on jerseys, making courts and stadiums. Can you just take us through some examples of some of the cool customization options you've got in there?
Well, on the arena, you can essentially customize anything that you want. You can customize stanchions, you can customize jumbotrons, the stands, how the arena's suites are all set up in there, the floors, where all the logos are placed, how they're placed, what logos are placed on them. There's preset logos. You can upload your own logos. The stencils. I mean, down to every single little detail within every sound that gets played after every single event. You can actually customize that in the game, and then you can customize your uniform to make it look exactly the way you want. Put your logos wherever you want to, have them say whatever you need them to say. It's just going to be great, especially as we lead into the 2K Pro-Am mode, where people are going to really want to identify themselves and their squads as their own.
Yeah, and from a purely just technical gameplay stat, with the actual, the mechanics of the sport of it, how do you look at iterating on that year on year? What feedback have you taken from 2K15, and how have you implemented that into 2K16? Just the way the mechanics of the basketball work.
There's a lot of feedback that we get, both from our own and from our fans. A lot of, you'll sit there, and a lot of things that we'll hear is, hey, there's all these canned two-player animations, so we hear those things, and we try to evolve and make things feel way more responsive than they ever been before. So, or movement might not exactly feel like it's in its place.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're spending a lot of time this year on is making sure that as people look at the game, I've already heard, hey, I walked by your office, and what game are you watching? And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that's the video game. We've heard that, but then internally we look at it, and there's ways we're like, the way that guy moved from there to there, it's not really contextual to the way I would do it if I were on a basketball court. And so getting all of that stuff to work exactly the way we want to, that's where we try to push ourselves. We try to push ourselves where we think we fell short.
Fantastic. And just to wrap up then, for you personally, what is the single thing about 2K16 that excites you the most?
For me, it's for me, it's the game. I'm a competitor. I was talking to somebody before. I was like, if I were allowed to compete and make money on it, I'd probably quit my job and just do that because that's just the way I'm wired. So as we continue to evolve as a game and we get closer to the real sport, that's where I get excited. I get excited specifically to the way the game feels and how close it comes to replicating what I knew as a basketball player growing up. And I think we're doing a phenomenal job at that these days.
Fantastic.